Hello everybody and welcome to History Bite number 55, dated September 27, 2020. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Bite is entitled Parliamentary Basics 101. Now, we Americans are used to our Republican government here in the U.S. with three separate branches, all uniquely designed to check and balance out the power of one another. Okay? But in parliamentary systems around the world, it's not quite that simple. While they almost all have independent judicial branches, of course, the executive and the legislative branches are naturally intertwined. What do I mean by that? Well, the executive, known as a prime minister in most parliamentary countries, is derived straight from the legislature. And while serving in the executive position as prime minister, they remain a member of the legislature. You're probably thinking, wow, that's kind of weird. How do they get away with that? Well, remember, the executive and legislative branches are intertwined. And this is a parliamentary system, all right? Not what we have here in the U.S. And you're probably thinking, well, where do they do that at? Well, look no further than Canada. They have an excellent representation of the parliamentary system there, derived straight from the Westminster-style parliamentary system from none other than Great Britain. That's right. So, I'll explain some of the features of the parliamentary system so that you have some clarity as to how it generally works. First and foremost, the executive in a parliamentary system, like I said, the head of the government, is known as a prime minister in most circumstances, and we'll use Great Britain as our guiding example here. The head of the government in the UK is the prime minister, okay? And the prime minister, while serving in the executive role, remains a member of Parliament, an MP, okay? Depending on what party it is, doesn't matter. But regardless, they are still an MP. And the prime minister, as a member of Parliament, is the leader of the party that has the majority of seats in the lower house of Parliament, aka the House of Commons, okay? Let me say that one more time in case I might not have gotten you. The prime minister is the leader of the party with a majority of seats in the lower house of Parliament. Okay, in Britain, that is known as the House of Commons. Okay, one does not run for prime minister per se, as one runs for president here in the U.S. To set yourself up to become prime minister, you have to run to be a party leader. Take your pick: conservative, Labour, Liberal, Democrat. I'm giving UK parties here. Okay, and one becomes a party leader by running for the office. Most of the time, this is an internal process, but sometimes it is extended to the members of that party throughout the country, okay, the general electorate, all right? It's not normally done like that, but on occasion it is, okay? For the sake of this history bite, we'll focus on an internal election, all right, where one is running to be leader of the party. We'll say the Conservative Party. So all the people who wish to be considered for leadership of the Conservative Party put their name down, and whoever, of course, gets a majority of the votes becomes the leader of the party. That person, therefore, has set themselves up to become prime minister if the Conservative Party wins a majority of the seats in the House of Commons. For reference purposes, the House of Lords, the other House of Parliament in the UK, is appointed, not elected, and therefore not germane to this, per se. So, in a general election, okay, the people of the UK do not go to the polls to vote for prime minister per se, the way we go to the polls here and vote for president, all right? In the UK, if you want the Conservative Party to control the government, then you vote for Conservative candidates running for office in the House of Commons. You are voting for Conservative candidates, okay, to fill those seats in the House of Commons. In the same way, you vote for Democratic or Republican candidates running for Congress here, all right? So if you want the Conservative Party to control the government, you vote for conservative candidates running for seats in the House of Commons. All right? If the Conservative Party wins a majority of the seats in the House of Commons, then guess what? The Conservative Party will control the government, and whoever the leader of the Conservative Party is will become the new Prime Minister, or be re-elected to that position, essentially, will become the Prime Minister of the UK, or will continue as Prime Minister of the UK. Currently, the Conservative Party does control the government in the UK at this time. All right? Once that party receives a majority of seats, whoever the leader of that party is, will then be asked by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth to form a government. And at that point, if they accept, they become the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, all while still remaining a member of Parliament, okay, a member of the legislative branch, a member of the House of Commons, all right? They do not cease being a member of the House of Commons just because they're Prime Minister, okay? They continue to serve as a member of the legislative branch, all while also serving as executive, as Prime Minister, the leader of their party, okay? Another feature of parliamentary government that is very common is coalition government, whereby, let's say, for example, the Conservatives win the general election, okay? But they don't exactly win enough seats, okay, for a clear majority. So they just barely get a bare majority, okay? So they don't obviously have enough to govern without serious opposition. And the leading opposition party wins almost as many seats as they do. We have seen this happen, all right? So the Conservative Party, being that they won the majority, albeit by the skin of their teeth, they'll have to ally themselves with one of the smaller parties, okay? For example, the Liberal Democratic Party, all right? And the Liberal Democratic Party will typically vote with the Conservatives on major issues when it comes to passing legislation. In that regard, the Conservative Party will then have its authority to govern over the primary opposition party, which in Britain would be the Labour Party, for example, okay? So that's coalition government, all right? Other features of parliamentary government are the ability to take down the governing party, Prime Minister, essentially, with a vote of no confidence, all right? That can be done from within or from the opposition. As well, parliamentary systems have the ability typically to call elections sporadically at arbitrary times, unless otherwise dictated by law. So these are features of parliamentary government which are very common. Of course, it varies greatly from country to country, but I'm speaking primarily of how it works in the UK, all right? You do your own research and you look up parliamentary systems throughout the world, and you'll definitely find some interesting traits. So remember, the Prime Minister is the head of state, the head of government, okay? We're using the UK. But even as head of state, the head of the government, all right, they remain a member of the House of Commons, okay? The lower house, okay, of the British Parliament. They still remain a member of the legislative branch while serving as executive or head of government in the UK as Prime Minister, okay? There's no official separation of that, you know, those two things when you think about it, okay? But nonetheless, they still have the authority to govern as an executive, all right? But their legislative role is never forfeited, okay? So those are the pretty decent parliamentary basics that I can give you in this short amount of time, okay? Hope you learned a thing or two from this. Like I said, do your own research and you'll find out a whole lot more. Thanks for listening to this History Bite. Take care. Stay safe out there. And I'll talk to you at the next one. Peace.